Today we begin our last lesson, and it's a fossil assessment. We're going to be working on how to prepare for it today, and then we'll work on it another day to finish it up. So I'm just going to read this article here, and then we'll find out what we have to write about. So fossil assessment. Scientists and others who have trekked on Mount Everest have reported seeing many marine organism fossils. This includes fossils like sea lilies, small shrimp-like organisms, and other small shelled organisms, which date back to 500 million years ago. Marine fossils have been found not only in the Himalayas, but also in many other mountain ranges, including the Appalachian Mountains. The fossil shown here is that of a type of tropical animal called a crinoid or feather star. That's this picture down here. The one up here are some trilobites. They kind of walked on the bottom of the ocean floor. So these are the crinoids that we're talking about. These sea creatures attach to the sea bottom with a long stalk or a stem, which is right here, and use the feathery upper structures to capture food, these things here. Some of these animals had stalks several feet tall. So these are not plants, these are actually animals. So very weird looking creatures. Next, somehow fossil fragments of crinoid organisms ended up toward the tops of mountains like Mount Everest. Scientists were able to see and identify these exposed fossils on mountains without having to dig them up. Okay, so that's the information we have. And there's more reading, but that's going to be a different thing there. So bear with me here. So they told us about these things. This first sentence right here is the problem. So some fossil fragments of crinoid organisms, things that lived in the ocean, ended up on the top of mountains like Mount Everest, which doesn't make sense. If they're in the ocean, they should be in the ocean, but they're not. They're way up there. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. And we also could see them just exposed on the rocks. They weren't like buried in the rocks and inside the mountain. They were like right on top of the mountain. So we got those two problems. So now we go to the next step. It says, using what we know about plate tectonics and the processes of weathering and erosion, answer the following questions about how this fossil can be near the top of Mount Everest and how it can be seen exposed near the top of Mount Everest without a person having to dig to find it. Okay, so we're going to break up these three things here. So first, it says using what we know about plate tectonics and the processes of weathering and erosion. I have put a review sheet as an attachment. It's also in Schoology. So here are the things we've learned, and it's a long list, but it's just facts that we've found out over this whole unit. So I'm not going to read through all these. You can go through this on your own. But as you go through it, what you want to start thinking about is what facts in this list here would help you answer those questions. And again, the questions are, how do we get a sea fossil at the top of Mount Everest? So that's the first one. How did it get there? Second one is, why is it not buried? Like, why is it sitting on top of the rock where it is? It's just exposed, like, right on the top layer of rock. So how did that happen? So you want to download this, send it to Notability, and then you can use the highlighter in there to highlight the ones you want to use. Again, you're not trying to highlight everything. You're not highlighting what was interesting, what you didn't know. We have a very fine focus of we want to highlight the information that would help us answer those two questions. So what you want to do here is go through this whole list. It's like 2 pages long. You want to go through the whole list, only highlight the things you think might help you answer those two questions, and then you're done with this document for now. Coming back to our question here. So we're going to be doing some writing. Again, we're not doing it today. We're just kind of prepping. So part of that prepping is looking at that list of facts, highlighting the ones we want to use, perhaps. We might have to go back to that list. You might want to go back to that list once we start writing and add some more facts to it. Another thing we have to do is draw a model of what's happening. So as you're thinking about these things, again, you don't have to do this today. If you want to, you can start. So maybe start drawing a model of how you think these fossils got to the top of Mount Everest, or how these fossils got exposed so that they're just sitting on top of the rocks on top of Mount Everest. We talked about maybe if you're making your model, it doesn't have to be 2 different pictures. It could be the same model being drawn, and maybe the left-hand side explains one question, the right-hand side explains the other. Or you might want to make two models. That's up to you and how you want to develop those ideas. But again, just thinking right today about what information we want to start using and thinking about how we might be answering these questions. So nothing to hand in today, just highlighting that list of information in Notability so we have that for the next class.